I want to get more reaction to that vote that took place. To recap for you, overwhelmingly in support of the Conservatives' motion to declare that genocide is happening in China to the minority Uighur population. Let's talk to somebody who knows a lot about what Uyghurs are enduring. Mehmet Todi fled China to Canada over 20 years ago. His own father died just days after being released from a Chinese labor camp where he was held for 13 years. And now 38 members of Mr. Todi's family, including his mother, have gone missing. He currently serves as executive director of the Uighur Rights Advocacy Project based here in Ottawa. Mr. Todi joins me now. Hi there, sir. Good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
What is your reaction to the vote that took place just moments ago in Parliament? The 266 votes to 0 in favor of declaring what's happening to Uyghurs in China as genocide.
We would like to thank all MPs from all political spectrum who voted for Uyghur genocide motion. This is important to acknowledge that what is going on and the crime committed by Chinese government against Uyghurs is genocide. This is important first step. And the Uyghurs in Canada and across the world, they are pleased to see that at least criminal behavior of Chinese government is finally acknowledged by the Canadian Parliament. At the same time, the suffer of victims also honored by the Canadian Parliament. For that reason, we are pleased to see this motion passed today.
What would you like to see happen next? What do you think the Canadian government, what do you hope the Canadian government does next?
There are three aspects as part of our international obligation. One is stop the genocide. And the second is punish those who are responsible for the crime of genocide and the crime of against humanity. And the third, as part of our responsibility to protect doctrine, we have to help those victims, especially if we cannot do anything for those inside China. There are some Uyghurs who are trapped in third unsafe countries who are facing deportation back to China at any time. Probably we can help them as part of our responsibility to protect doctrine.
And for people who are watching right now who may not be entirely familiar, this has become a big issue in Parliament here, but may not be entirely familiar with what Uyghurs are enduring right now in China, what would you tell them? What do you think Canadians should know about what's happening?
Just imagine for a second. Since October 23rd, 2016, I haven't spoken with my mother and my all relatives and anyone back home. All communication cut off by the Chinese government. And I don't even know my mother and the 38 other close relatives, they are alive or dead. And initially, the Uyghurs start to realize that something terrible is going on because all of them could not able to communicate with their parents and loved ones. And since 2017, we became known that millions of people, including our neighbors and former classmates and our parents, taken into so-called education center, the place where you can go, you cannot come out. And then with the satellite images and the victim testimonies and other internal Chinese documents, now we know that Chinese government interned more than 3 million Uyghurs in modern-day concentration camps. They deployed all modern technology to monitor them 24/7. And the children being separated from their parents. And millions of Uyghurs displaced from their homes and sent to mainland China in slave labor, and enforced sterilization and enforced indoctrination, full ban on their language, history, culture, and the demolish of their historic sites, even cemeteries, mosques, churches, all the burning of any books published officially by the government of China. So it is the full war waged against not only Uyghurs physically, at the same time, their all national identity, including culture, religious belief, or ethnic identity. So this is exactly what is going on, and the Chinese government never allowed any independent body to go and visit except some orchestrated show, specially designed by Chinese government for other people to come to see.
Okay, Mr. Todi, I have to leave it there. I do appreciate you sharing your time with us tonight and your experience. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Ashi.
Mehmet Todi is the executive director of the Uighur Rights Advocacy Project based here in Ottawa. The House of Commons voted in favor of a Conservative motion declaring China's treatment of its Uighur population a genocide. Cabinet members and the Prime Minister did not vote. Only Foreign Affairs Minister Marc Garneau was there, and he officially abstained. Dozens of Liberal MPs, though, did vote with the opposition. Samir Zuberi was one of them, and he joins us now from Montreal. Hi, Mr. Zuberi. Good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
Thanks for inviting me, Bashi.
Why did you vote in favor of this motion?
Well, I and a majority of my caucus voted in favor of this motion because we believe that what's happening to the Uyghur people and other Turkic minorities fits the definition of genocide, and this has to be stopped. What's happening in the region is unconscionable. There are crimes against humanity, there are rapes, there's torture, there's slave labor, there are concentration camps, children being separated from their families. This has to stop, and that's why all parties, a majority of members in the House of Commons voted the way we did today.
What did you think of Cabinet, other than Minister Garneau, abstaining?
Well, Cabinet chose to abstain, but everybody had a free decision, and every party, the majority of each and every party voted in favor of the motion, including the Liberal Party, and that, I think, says a lot. And now the government is compelled morally and bound morally by this decision of the Parliament.
And when you say compelled morally, I wanted to ask you exactly what you mean there, because it's a motion introduced by the Conservatives. It's not binding on anyone. Do you mean that you feel that the Prime Minister and Cabinet and the government officially should declare what's happening a genocide, that this vote should compel them morally to do so?
What this vote means is that there is a moral obligation on behalf of the government to look at all interactions with China now through the lens of this genocide recognition, and what's happening within the region through that lens. That's what this means. So moving forward, this is where we are as a country. And I really take pride in Canada being the first legislature in the world to make this recognition. We aren't doing this alone, though. We have America also, the administration that has recognized genocide is in fact occurring against the Uyghur people. We have many other allies, the UK, France, Germany, Australia, who are also calling for a halt to these crimes against humanity. This is forward movement, and I'm proud to be Canadian today. Proud of our Parliament for making the decision that we did.
And I'm certainly not in any way trying to take away from the decision that was made, the number of people MPs who voted in favor of it. I'm just, I guess, trying to ascertain from your perspective, when you say that this is the lens, for example, that the government has to look through, does that mean that it is your expectation that the government will officially make the declaration that genocide is happening? Because this is the will of MPs, yes, but it is not the position of the government yet at this point.
Well, I don't want to speculate on what the government will actually do in terms of the actual recognition. But there's one thing of how our system works, is that the government must listen to Parliament, must recognize what's happening, must take note. And therefore, even if this motion is not binding on the government, it does require a recognition of it, and does require, as a result of that, a rethink of how we are interacting. And what's happening within the region.
Pardon me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to jump on that point, because you said something once in the House of Commons that caught my eye. We must redouble our efforts to stop, and this was prior, based on your work at the Human Rights Subcommittee that did conclude that genocide was happening. We must redouble our efforts to stop this unfolding genocide. Can you put forth to our viewers and to me specifically what actions you would like to see the government take?
Certainly, we have to continue to work with our international partners to demand unfettered access to the region. We have to demand a halt to crimes against humanity that our Parliament said rise to the level of genocide. If we can't have access, which we must be asking for with our international partners, then we have to go forth with an investigation of survivors of these camps within other countries, within Turkey, within the neighboring Stan countries, and other places within our globe. These survivors are living. They can testify to what they suffered within these camps. The next thing is that we should very seriously consider a pathway for resettlement for Uyghur people and other Turkic minorities who are being subject to this genocide, to what's happening within these concentration camps. We have a moral obligation to do so as a country. And third, I would add, is that we have to give an extremely close look to what we are importing to Canada within our borders and what we're exporting to the region to ensure that none of our products that we are consuming here are unwittingly the product of forced labor. This is something that we need to give a very close look to. We know that a lot of cotton products emanate from the region of Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. We know that 20% of the world cotton actually starts off within this region. 80% of Chinese cotton actually comes from this region. We know that tomato products, the vast 35% of the global supply of tomato products, pasta sauce, ketchup, other products come from this region. We want to ensure that we're not unknowingly consuming this type of product.
And just on that final note, just so that I'm clear, are you talking about a more blanket ban, for example, to imports coming from that region? Or right now there are restrictions on imports based on specific companies and whether or not they employ forced labor, either wholly or in part. Are you saying that the government should be looking at a more blanket ban on imports from the region?
What I'm saying is that we, through this recognition of genocide and knowing that some products are, for the most part, originating within that region, that compels us to drive down to the answer. Is this product actually the produce of forced labor? And if we cannot determine it, then we have to look at what are we going to do with this entire category of product that comes from the region. But that's for our government to determine. And my role as a parliamentarian is to flag this issue. And I'm proud that every party voted in favor of this, including my party, the Liberal Party.
And just to circle back to where we started, I was thinking of, for example, the statement that came out from the Minister of Foreign Affairs following this vote. I mean, your party did very conclusively vote the way that you say and make the arguments that you're putting forth. But there is resistance from cabinet to making that declaration without, for example, a more fulsome UN investigation. You talk about having unfettered access to the region. We know that that's not a reality, that there's been attempts to do so, and they have been blocked. There's been access allotted, but it's to people that will basically, the accusation is just come back and spin what the Chinese regime is telling them is happening there. Do you believe that access can be secured, and what happens in the absence of it?
Well, in the absence of it, we still continue ahead. We can continue ahead with a credible investigation within the diaspora community of Uyghur people. They are in Kazakhstan, they're in Turkey, they're in other countries, and we can speak with the survivors of these camps. We can take their testimony, we can hear what they have to say, and we can test the veracity of what they are saying to make a final determination with respect to genocide. So that's the answer to it. But that doesn't mean that we don't continue to ask for unfettered access. That is also a critical call. So both calls at the same time while moving ahead with the international community.
Okay, Mr. Zuberi, I'll leave it there. I do appreciate you sharing your time with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vashi.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.